fiscal realities bequeathed to our new government are sobering indeed.
Then, new Finance Minister Paul Martin in the early 90s, after the Liberals inherited a deficit that peaked at nearly $60 billion in today's dollars. The government vowed a war on deficits. It cut spending, it hiked taxes, and years later, the country was back in the black.
The government's deficit may be eliminated, but we must never eliminate frugality from government.
For several years, Ottawa had a surplus, but that changed when the Great Recession hit in 2008.
I would estimate at more than $50 billion.
This time, the red ink is being blamed on the oil crash and global weakness. And the government has made the decision to spend in order to try and kickstart the economy. And while some raise concerns about the lasting damage of a growing debt, others say we can handle it.
Canadians have been taught to abhor deficits by previous governments, but the problem is that's not an all-time rule of thumb. And 20, 30 billion, 40 billion, these sound like big numbers, but we're a $2 trillion economy, and they're really not that big.
Economists say as long as we continue to see some GDP growth, the country can sustain a deficit for some time. And that, compared to other countries, our debt to GDP ratio, or the total amount of federal debt relative to the overall size of the economy, is much lower than many other countries. Ottawa's debt to GDP ratio sits around 30% right now. In the U.S., it's more than 70%. For Japan, it's well over 100%.
But you can't run deficits forever. That they come at a cost, your public debt will rise, and then at some point, having all that debt becomes a real negative weighing on the economy.
None of this shocked the financial markets today. In fact, perhaps just the opposite. Investors already knew deficits were set to grow. Stock markets and the Canadian dollar were both up. If the deficits grow and grow for years, that could change. But for now, markets are looking at all that red ink with just a shrug. Peter?
All right, Renee, thank you.